So go ahead and be as comfortable as you can in however it is that you're sitting, either in a chair like I am with your feet on the ground, and if you're sitting directly on the floor, you feel the base of your body on the ground. So we begin with grounding. And a good way to ground and to initiate a meditation where you can really focus inside is to begin with the breath. So we'll go ahead and begin with the breath. Close your eyes. And before even noticing anything about the breathing, initially you may notice a quietude within and without you that is already here. Regardless of whatever may be going on in your physical environment, including your physical body, that which is most intimate. So just noticing what's already still, what's already alive, embodied with stillness. And through this meditation, we're going to contact this stillness more fully. As all of us know that spirituality, the essence of spirituality, all spirituality, is surrender. It's letting go into the stillness of you that is already here. Now, if you've had a very active day and you don't feel quite stillness, quietude or stillness, we're going to go ahead and contact that. So let your breath flow into the body fully. We'll begin with a little effort here. So inviting the breath into the torso, letting it expand the rib cage. And as the breath flows out, you don't need to direct it, just let it flow out of you. And on the inhalation, let's again take the breath, this time more deeply into the body, so that you can feel your belly expand. Soft, soft belly. And again, as the breath releases, just let it flow out of you. And notice that with every exhalation, there's already a softening. There's a deeper relaxation that takes place. And again, on the inhalation, let the breath flow down into the base of the torso, all the way down to the hip carriage, widening the hip carriage. And let the breath flow out. Now, as you breathe softly and deeply, notice that there's more space expanding between the vertebrae. Let your spine be elongated. Without holding it yourself through muscles, but just by inviting the breath to lift you, to be lifted in the spine, as well as to be lifted here at the breastbone. So we're inviting the breath to enter into all parts of the body, inviting all of you to be here. And notice that there is a delightfulness that takes place when we enter more fully into our bodies. So it's as if we're descending from the headspace into this enormous field of energy in the body. Let the shoulders be relaxed. Open. Open. And notice if there's any spaces in the body that feel tight or contracted. And invite the breath to be there without any force. Just a soft, gentle acknowledging that there may be some areas that are tight or contracted. And just with very soft, light kindness, inviting the breath to enter into those spaces. Consciousness, breath, space, the body are all the same thing. So here we're inviting anything that feels separate to join in the field of consciousness, this enormous field that is much more located in the body than in the headspace. Not that the headspace is not consciousness, it is. But we can often get caught in mental loops where we just stay in the head. So here we're allowing presence, awareness, space to implode the entire body. Now, as you're just sitting gently with your breath, you may also notice that energy will open in different places in the body, and that different places are already open, which is beautiful. Some people have contacted me about Kundalini awakenings, where there's a lot of energy that opens up in the lower chakras. And it can open in many different places. And the encouragement is to allow that energy to descend in down through the legs, and to let yourself be grounded through the legs, down through the feet, and to feel your connection to the earth, beneath the floor, beneath the construction of your home or wherever it is you might be. That energy is not separate from earth, from mother, from ground. So right from the start, we're grounding to the base of being. Now, allow the breath to just return to its ordinary rhythm, although it may be somewhat altered already, may be deeper and wider. Just let it flow now by itself. Doesn't need any help. Let that invitation for all to be here continue throughout the entire meditation. Everything is welcome. And in the same way that you're able to just lightly let the breath flow by itself, you can allow everything to be as it is. You're the space of awareness or consciousness that has this huge capacity to notice, to allow, to welcome what's here. So anything that may feel closed, distant, or separate can integrate or harmonize with the totality of you as the fullness of being. In some ways, when we're relaxing as the space of beingness or consciousness, it may feel like we're receding, if you will, behind the totality of your experience. It may also feel like you're descending beneath the totality of your experience. It may also feel like you're before and above. This is wonderful because what you are cannot be located. It does not locate itself in any one place. What you are is not a fixation. So let yourself be this non-locatable presence, sometimes perhaps feeling more behind or beneath, before, above. And as you allow this non-locatable presence to implode, you feel more and more just like space. Spacious and alive, relaxed and engaged, behind and beneath. Hmm. Now, if you feel attention moving more into what you could call a front space, locating itself in thought, allow that to happen. There's nothing wrong with thought. Thought is welcome to be here. Now, often when you sit in a strong presence, any fixations or habitual patterns, mental grooves will often present, because whatever is not yet conscious, whatever is unconscious as habit or fixation or fantasy, will arise here in the light of you, in the light of space, in the light of consciousness, so that it can be set free, can be harmonized. So whatever thoughts are here appearing, let that be, without trying to change, without looking for any right thought. There are no wrong thoughts. Thought just doesn't really have reality. It could be referred to as a moving sensation or an energetic pattern. Thought is merely a symbolic representation of perception. So let whatever thought is here be here. And you will notice that when given full allowance, that all by itself, it will soften or dissolve, may even initiate a series of thoughts, a loop of thoughts that are unwinding. Let that unwinding take place without grasping, without claiming ownership. Let there be space between thoughts. And as you feel more space around the territory of the head, let yourself fall into those spaces. These spaces are unknown. It's the unknown nature of consciousness. To be so willing to fall into space. To not have the need to direct thought, especially not to believe thought. There's a natural clarity that presents in the mind, the space of the mind. You may even start to feel luminous, wide and open. So what's happening is that mental grooves and patterns that are habitual, that come out of memory, past experience, conditioning, are being detoxified, are unhooking. So you're being unhooked from thought. Sometimes as thought is cleaning, being cleared, cleaned out of these patterns, some people report having headaches, and that's a normal process. Just like as the body detoxifies, sometimes you can feel nauseous as the clearing is happening. So see how much you can not try to change that, not try to alter your experience by allowing it to be as it is, in this wide, wide space of awareness. Letting yourself become more comfortable in a space, in a wider space, in a space of luminosity. It's not fixed, it doesn't fixate or fantasize. It doesn't have a past or a future. Just this. Just clarity of mind. Luminous and wide. Now, often as the space of the head is opening, you might also feel energy in different places all around the head as it unlocks itself. As awareness moves into these spaces and frees any toxic forces that may have been. The word I want that's coming is dense. Old, dense energies. As they unlock and open, you may feel a variety of sensations in the space of the head. It's as if there's a adjusting, a reorientation happening, going from what is known as a concept to direct experience of consciousness, unlocatable, luminous, clear. clear mind. It doesn't attach itself to anything. And to not be disconcerted if there still is a locking in on thought happening or fixation. We're sitting here in timeless presence. It's totally timeless, no past and no future. And at the same time, something from the past may present itself in this moment. And it may feel like a density as it's clearing. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong. Something is coming into the light of consciousness so that it can be cleared. And depending on the degree of not only our personal unconsciousness, but there's a collective human unconsciousness that each and every one of us is a part of. So there's a wider clearing that happens as you recognize that you're not an individual. You're not a separate being, separate from all other energies in existence. So consciousness is a very wide field that brings everything home to itself. So collective detoxification can happen in this wide space of consciousness. So there's our personal unconsciousness, and there's the collective human condition that clears. So then not only is this practice that we do together beneficial to each and every one of us, it's beneficial to the totality of humanity. So becoming more and more comfortable in space, as space. As luminosity. So notice that this capacity that you have for a stillness, universal stillness, to exist in the space of what we call mind, to be very possible, not to doubt your capacity for a luminous, clear, still mind. And I just want to clarify again that this doesn't mean a thoughtless mind. to give full allowance for thought to rise here within you without trying to change it, with an attitude of welcome, engaged, relaxed, welcome. So there's a noticing and an allowing, but there's not a hooking in, there's not a getting involved with all the ways that we can tinker, which is simply a form of control. It's then, when we do that, we're claiming individuality. And then we have to question, inquire, am I an individual? What am I? Are these my thoughts? And we get to the origin of thought, which is always impersonal. And we get to the origin of you, the existence of you. What came first? You as consciousness, birthed into form, or the form? Thought is a form, it's a thought form, a symbolic representation that came and may continue to come in consciousness. Consciousness is first, before, during, and after. Let yourself soften here. As we continue to enjoy the benefits of a clear, luminous mind, and we fall more into the body. So thought may continue to detoxify, to open, to empty, as we fall into the body of you. Just by hearing these words, attention may gently shift into the body as we allow a transmission to take place here at the heart, the territory of the torso, the chest, the rib cage, the breast, the breastbone, and noticing how is it to be here, this space of the body. As the shoulders drop even more, let the neck be soft. So we're coming out of any holding patterns in the body. Maybe just for a moment, place your fingertips right at the front of the shoulder bone. I think that's what you call it. And just notice if your shoulders round in. Just notice, not making it right or wrong. And just let there be a little lift at the shoulders. As if you're allowing there to be more space than in the chest. By letting the shoulders recede back. The body can be very conditioned to contract over the heart, to round over. So here we're going to unround, roll back. And let there be space. The front of the chest. And let that space expand all the way to the back side, behind the heart. Feel the delightfulness of expansion. And then let your hands, your fingers, relax back down on your lap. Let your arms relax down. And let your hands be in a posture of open receptivity. We give and we receive through our hearts. Often we have learned to guard or protect or hold back our expression, our true love, our truest expression, our caring. Within all of humanity, there is a intrinsic caring. It's very deep. And in some of humanity, it's been suppressed. Through different strategic patterns that were developed as a way of protecting, hiding. Learning about and believing in some false sense of security. If I hold myself back here, I won't be hurt. Well, that might be true, but it also means that you won't be lived. So here, we want to soften and allow any patterns of protection, any ways in which we may guard, to soften here. While you're here in the presence of a very safe transmission of you, of us together, a supportive community that cares deeply about truth, about true expression, about openness. Now, sometimes it's our physical environments that we live in that trigger a sense of needing to be on guard. So I want you to just take a scan, a little check of the environment in which you're in. And just, it's almost as if now we are allowing our attention, our awareness to expand into the physical environment in which you inhabit, checking for safety. How is it that you feel in the environment in which you live? And just kind of noting. Just sensing and feeling into the environment. Is it okay? And making a note of that. Because we don't want to discount any part of first the internal environment and then the external environment. Because here in the space of awareness is where a great change can take place. Now, if there is something in our external environment that is inhibiting us, dampening our life force, our energy, our openness, then here as we sit together, you can let that information inform you. For any change that you may want to make over time. To feel like the sanctuary that you have a sanctuary somewhere in your physical environment where you can come and sit and fully be yourself without guard, without the need for any protection. Now, this is a longer conversation that we can get to later. Right now, we're just making note. Okay, now let the awareness of you recede back more into your internal environment. And notice that just in doing that little exercise of checking for safety, just the acknowledgement of that allows a finer relaxation to happen in the body. Perhaps the breath is even widened some. So we're not making anything wrong about any particular environment or even that it needs to change. We're exploring how we are in relationship to the environment that we inhabit, intimately and throughout the house in which you live in and the environments in which your body travels. Not to go on guard, but to allow yourself to be informed, to be sensitized to your own needs. We're not looking for a perfect environment, not looking for anything, but we're looking to see that, or to notice that when we feel comfortable and when we can relax inside of ourselves, that we notice an aliveness, an energy of true expression here. It's not a perfect expression. It's a true expression of the heart. Uncensored. If we're needing to accommodate in our environments, internal and external, our expression has to move through a filter of accommodation, where we're censoring ourselves, how we can be, what we can take in, what we can give. So just noticing here, just letting it be here, and letting the noticing inform. Yeah, we're gonna have a little conversation now. Nothing needs to change. So even though the so-called formal meditation has ended, nothing about you needs to change. We never need to return to a former state of consciousness. It's just not necessary. And let's talk about how that's possible in relationship to this whole idea of not postponing. And what we're talking about is not postponing who and what you actually are, not postponing reality, the opportunity for reality to take full hold, to live you. So often we are living out of a false reality. We're perceiving. We've learned to perceive falseness because of our conditioned filters. So when I took you through the guided meditation, I always, it's not like I'm trying to do something, but I'm trying to put into words, point to what's actually living here already. And now in a conversation to be able to put words onto that. So just know that the words are always secondary. They're symbolic representations. They're pointing at something that is much deeper and often very difficult to express through words. So I'll give it my best shot. I'm also going to turn the chat on. And that way, let's see, it ought to stay open. And any one of you can try to utilize the chat. Where that is, I should tell you, if you're on Google Hangouts, on a Mac anyways, it's on the left side of the screen. It looks like a little text box. And if you click on that, it opens up group chat. And I'm going to type, I'm just going to type a little something into mine, and you can see if it shows up on your screen. And that way we can have a conversation. That would be great. So what happens is all of humanity carries a certain degree of unexpressed grief, of wounding. And rightly so, because the the unconsciousness of humanity is great, and it's been in existence since the beginning of time, since the beginning of human beings. And as I traveled around recently in Europe, I went to many museums and learned much more about history, the history of civilization in Spain and France and many other places. So we carry quite a history with us. And so we're not only carrying our personal history, we're carrying the history of our ancestors and the land in which they lived, the time in which they lived. So there's not only what's unconscious in us, it's what's unconscious in the ancestral collective that influences how we are in relationship to life, how we perceive life, and our ability or our capacity to perceive reality as it is. Now you could say that that's what enlightenment is, to be awake is to be able to perceive through clear eyes without filters, to see reality as it is, actuality, without a reference to the past, without being influenced by conditioning. And at the same time, to acknowledge that conditioning is here. So when there's suppressed grief and there's suppressed wounding in the system, you can see how all of our emotional patterns are hooked up to our thoughts, to our memories. So there could be, the bodies are very intelligent. So the body may have something in its memory, cellular memory, muscle memory, that isn't conscious yet. So we may not be conscious of the thought patterns that are fueling that, fueling the holding on of grief, the holding on of a wound, the holding back of our true expression. And when we start to slow down and open up, we can start to see how emotion and thought are directly connected, and how our thought patterns can regenerate early emotion, early wounding, the holding of grief. And when there is that, there will be a guardedness, a holding back. And some people feel it as pain, even in the back, behind the heart. And, as people carry it for a long time, you can also see how you start to curve over and hold it in. It changes in the body. And, so as we start to open, the body starts to even fall back more, and you come into an alignment, so you're aligning yourself with your truest expression. So, but what to see is that if we just give space and we start to see how thought and emotion are directly connected to each other, we can also see that holding patterns have a lot to do with our perception or our concepts around perfection, and how we tend to stay in an old pattern waiting for our internal environment, including our form, the external side of the internal, or our outer environment to somehow become the perfect environment. And all that is doing is postponing our aliveness, our life force, our healing, our capacity to allow old griefs, old wounds, old holding back, staying back here, to empty out, to empty out, to empty out, to empty out. And when we're in these holding patterns, we're also, it becomes very painful. It becomes very painful because you start to feel isolated. That's what separation is. Separation creates a very strong sense of isolation. And so we feel disconnected from each other and from the world, from life, from living. So the encouragement is not to wait, because perfection is only a concept. The idea of perfection is just a concept like anything else that is an idea in the mind that somehow got interpreted, intercepted, that, oh, if my life were perfect at such and such a time, this would or wouldn't have happened in the way that it did. So if I make it perfect now, I can prevent that former experience from happening. I will not have to re-experience that again. And this kind of activity may not even be conscious, but it's a way that we maneuver, manipulate, and try to control life and the environments and the people around us so that we don't have to re-experience something, which often was very traumatic. And so there's a good reason for not wanting to experience trauma. Who would want to? And to guard. But the postponing of letting this guard soften. So that's why in the part around the heart, so we have to be able to create a sanctuary for ourselves. We have to be able, that's why we have retreats, that's why we have satsang. Satsang is a sanctuary, a sanctuary. In a recent satsang, one woman was talking about feeling the need to go to a hospital. And it was very understandable that urge or that request would come about because she didn't see another solution. And sometimes we definitely need to have extra resources to help us out. But as I was sitting there in satsang, I was really, just realizing that satsang is a hospital. Meditation is a hospital. Your life needs to have a hospital within it. And so let's shift that word to sanctuary. We need to be able to create internal sanctuaries. And often to be able to create that internal sanctuary, we need to make some adjustments in the external. We need to first notice, what is it that's triggering us in our environments? What is it that's keeping us from feeling safe? And to make any adjustments that are necessary so that you can relax into your own inner sanctuary, or to find a sanctuary, which is a retreat with somebody that you feel safe with and that you trust. And then this ability to relax can happen, to be able to come inside and to notice what patterns have been created here and how they're being re-triggered or triggered and regenerated by the life that we're accustomed to, that then can just become habitual. And when we're still running old patterns, being run by old patterns, we're not experiencing reality as it is. We're not awake to our true nature. Even if we've had awakenings, which many, many people do, but still get triggered. I'm not making that wrong. I'm just trying to give a picture. And that's why, being able to be triggered is actually a good thing, because it shows us where we haven't healed yet. Where there's still something that's a pattern that's running, an old grief that hasn't been expressed, a wound that hasn't healed, a confusion that hasn't clarified itself. So if we don't feel the ability to just soften and relax here, we don't get to see how we may guard ourselves. So when we're guarded, protected, not feeling safe, we're not experiencing reality. We're experiencing the past. We're somehow still stuck in time, in a memory. And then whatever's happening in the now is being filtered through that memory. I'm sure that all of us have these experiences when you're speaking to another person. I even had this just today. And you haven't really even finished what you had wanted to say. And that, that person heard a little bit of it, but then thought that they were listening and took whatever little bit they got through their filter and acted upon it, almost like a reaction, like a reflex. But what actually is being expressed isn't really even being heard, isn't being received on the other end, because that person may be in a stressful moment. Anything could be happening in their life, and they're triggered, so they're falling into an old pattern, and then what's being said isn't actually received, and they're acting out of a memory unconsciously. So that's unconsciousness. And then when we the delivery, the person delivering the message, if we can have enough consciousness within ourselves, enough softness, enough kindness, we can be in a holding space for that other person and to do, help in a way that's very kind, kind of just in your own presence, support a slowing down to happen, a pause. Let's just breathe. And in that breathing, a shift can happen. And, a shift is an awakening. It's a shift in consciousness. So when someone can just be with you, or you can just be with yourself and notice, wow, I was just reacting. I didn't even hear what that person said. No, that's awakening. That's an awakening right there. When you can just breathe. Slow down. Wow. Just go, And then consciousness comes into that moment. And that old habitual habit based on an old memory, that the triggering of that can be unhooked. Can empty out of the system. And then perception clarifies itself. So you start to see the moment as it is. And your experience becomes fresh. It's not based on a memory. We see this all the time where people, humanity, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but humanity, where it's always apologizing for itself, where life is just moving along and humanity says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But nothing has even happened. That's the past. And it's become a habit. So that's not even perceiving reality, because in reality, you don't have to apologize for yourself. You don't have to. You haven't done anything wrong. That's a shift in consciousness when you can, in a moment, stop and see that, wow, I was just reacting. And then the connection between memory, conditioned thoughts that are often very unconscious, and our emotional life. We start to create space between how thought can live us. And so then there's some space, and you can start to sink into the places in the body where the impact of these thoughts are still living, still residing. And all of this starts to open up. And it's messy. It can be messy. But in that messiness, you're falling more into your true expression, which doesn't postpone, doesn't wait for a perfect moment, doesn't wait for things to line up according to our own personal ideals, or our ideas, our wishes, our wants of how we think things should be. If I did that, I mean, there was a time when I did, of course, we all do. If I did that now, I probably would not do anything. You know, I just would be home in isolation, because if I had to think about making something perfect, even for instance this broadcast, you know, if I had to think out every single detail about how it's supposed to go in order for it to be perfect, I would so exhaust myself that I wouldn't have any energy left, and it wouldn't happen. I just wouldn't do it. My life wouldn't. I would be disconnected from life. So when people were sending me requests to start up this program again, I was able to say, yeah, why postpone? No, is there a perfect moment? And then I've recognized within myself that all of the times that I haven't felt perhaps quite prepared, but I've gone ahead anyways, that's where the greatest learnings have taken place. Because more over what is happening is when we let go of our personal will, I could say, we really are lining ourselves more with the will of this higher, deeper intelligence that lives in our bodies. You know, that lives everywhere. To give it a chance to show itself, how it's actually the conductor, it's the one who's managing the show.